Well, hello, welcome to a Ballsy Short. That is a segment from a broader video that I've already posted. In this case, it's the 10 balls for highly effective ballsy thinking. And if you've watched that, you'll know that one of the balls is you've got to have balls. You've got to have the courage to actually get started and to do something that you think is going to add value or make a difference in the world. And today what I want to do is to talk about a have balls moment for me, which was in 1981 when I was recruited at university to go to what was then the Soviet Union, or comprised mainly of Russia, and to deliver some subversive material. So the subversive material back in that period, when of course you didn't have the internet and so on, was the view from the outside world of what Russia was. And I was to take in 100 letters. You can see on the screen here, these are the sort of airmail letters that you use, which were used at the time, very, very light. And I was to take 100 of these, and they were printed professionally in Germany, and they had little snippets of information from the Times of England, the Frankfurt Allgemeine, Newsweek, Time, little bits of what were magazines. I know many people don't understand magazines nowadays because of course it's all online. But it was, I had quite a few months training. I was University of Aberdeen, and I went all the way down to London to understand what I would face when I got to Leningrad. I was chosen to go. And of course, there were other people going too. So you can see in the Times, or the Telegraph article here, should I say, a write-up of it and what happened during that period. And we went to, there were people going to distribute these, and the idea was that of course they would be sent to random addresses in various cities. So Leningrad, now called St. Petersburg, was my destination, and I was supposed to take a trip on the underground, or the subway there, and just take trips to furthest ways out. And you can see on this diagram, I think I remember taking the trip out to the end of the yellow line, at the end of the red line, and then the blue line, on 2 separate days, and just getting rid of these letters 5 at a time in various post boxes that I saw hanging around. The trip out was quite interesting because I was wearing Wellingtons, and into the Wellingtons I stuffed 50 letters each. Okay, they were a bundle of so big, and I remember they were in plastic bags, and I thought, God, as I went up to the gate, I thought, I'm not going to survive this, because they started to itch like mad, the plastic was inside the Wellingtons. So I had a copy of the FT, and I tore some pages out, and I wrapped the letters up and stuck them down each boot. Now I wasn't too worried about obviously leaving the UK, because they don't care, even if they'd been found, they wouldn't have minded. It was just, up to them. We were free to read this stuff, so it wasn't a big deal. But it did fluster me a bit, and after I got on the plane and I was flying into Leningrad, I realised I'd left my big army coat back at the airport, and that really did fluster me a bit, because I only had this sort of down jacket and an Aran sweater. And I was going into Leningrad in the winter, and it's blinking cold there. So the good thing about the down jacket was it was reversible. So I wore that, and we landed at the airport, and my bag was first off. Can you imagine? So I was told by my handlers that under no circumstances should I go through, or I shouldn't go through first. I mean, obviously circumstances dictate. So I let my bag go around a couple of times, and all of the customs people were gathered around one one entrance, one booth, and because we obviously hadn't started coming through yet. So I waited until a couple more people started, and then I couldn't really not go. So I walked up, and I could see these guys going to the various different booths along the way, and they stopped after I put my bag up. The guy took a great deal of interest in me, and I don't know why, but other guys started to come and gather round. And then I realised they were touching their necks, and I realised it was this gold pin that I had underneath my tie. And back in these days, you could buy these shirts that had holes in it. You put this thing underneath your tie, and though it was cheap and plastic, but they were obviously fascinated by the whole thing. And luckily, at that point, other people were starting to queue up. Other tourists were starting to queue on the other booths, and they decided that they had to move along. And one of their supervisors, in fact, came along to my guy and said, "Come on, obviously in Russian, I didn't understand Russian, but I could tell the gist that he wanted people to get back to work." So fortunately, I breezed through, and we stayed at the hotel, the Leningrad hotel, I think it was. Anyway, there's a picture of it there, and as you can see on this picture, there's the third floor up is very, very narrow. If you look closely, I'll probably be able to highlight it on the photo. And that was where I'd been briefed that all of the listening devices were for the whole hotel. So each room was bugged. Each room had a floor with a woman on. And I checked into my room, but for the first 2 days, obviously I was pretty petrified because I couldn't, leave the letters. I had to take them to breakfast, everything. I just carried them around in a bag. Anyway, after I'd done the letters and I'd got rid of them, I had to buy more blank letters to take back, because these were pre-stamped with Soviet postage stamps for airmail. And so I went to booths, various different kiosks, where they sold papers and cigarettes and so on, and they sold these, and I picked up another 100 or however many I could get, ready for the next people who were going to be going. I then let my hair down a bit, and as you can see, I met a couple of ladies who were in tourist group, because everybody who goes to the Soviet Union in those days had to go via a sponsored trip, a proper trip. And one of the ladies, the lady on the left with the black hair, she had just finished a year at Leningrad University from Liverpool University in an exchange program where she was learning Russian. And so she was going to make a trip back to the university. And, she asked me if I'd like to come, and I jumped at the chance. I'd done my letters, I got my souvenir blank letters to take back, so I was now just a regular tourist. And so we went along, and it was extremely good. The chap who we went to see was very good. He was obviously an English student, and you can see he had a room with the Soviet flag on, and there's a couple of photos I'll put up for you here. But one of the things that he was stumped on was there's a Pink Floyd song where there's a helicopter and the words, "If you don't eat your meat, you won't get any pudding." So he couldn't understand this until I told him it was like a Jewish mother thing, or a mother and son thing, where this is what English mothers say to their children to get them to eat properly, and then have the sweets afterwards. And so I was glad to clear that up for him, actually, because he actually played the tune on his sort of LP on the radio deck. Anyway, we're having a great time, and I must say I was imbibing a hell of a lot of vodka. And then all of a sudden there was a knock on the door, and I could tell this guy I was looking at, and I was getting relatively pissed with the guy, and I looked at the girls, and everyone stopped, and here's me, listening to the music and so on. And the girl from Liverpool said to me, I said, "Who's that?" And the girl this guy started barking outside. It's obviously about what's going on in there or whatever. And that's what she said. He said, this chap's saying, "What's going on in there?" And he was the KGB snitch. So obviously that changed the sort of dynamics of the party. But the guy came in, and he sat down, started drinking with us, but the whole atmosphere had changed. And as you can see, the photo here, this photo is me with the English student who we were having a good time with. And then there's another photo, which you can see now, where, under my arms, I'm starting to sweat. I wouldn't have been a good spy. The biometrics just wouldn't have worked. So it was a killer, really. And it really reinforced, it killed the evening, but it also reinforced why I was there. And that was, the whole mission was to undermine the authoritarian state. Because, of course, a lot of the letters would have landed, because they were randomly picked from the Leningrad telephone directory. A lot of the letters would have landed on KGB people, snitches and so on, and they would have, the general feeling was that obviously a few people were doing this, and they would then have to try and hunt for a printing press, which they thought was in the city because printing these letters. In effect, they weren't, though. They were being printed in Frankfurt or somewhere in Germany, and we were taking them in. So it's those little things that you see now, the sort of subversive nature of some of the stuff that's going on, as we see with the war in Ukraine now, online, where people stand up and make a protest or whatever. But here, this was a much more authoritarian state. The Soviet Union really was. There was all the telephone lines were stopped and so on, all the television channels, as they are now, pretty much, propaganda, but much, much worse, all the newspapers and so on. So, and people had never tasted freedom, whereas at least now in the Soviet Union, many people have tasted freedom, and a lot of people are leaving because of that. But I'm pretty proud of what we did. I think it was, I was proud of the team, to be a part of it. I didn't realise then, as I do now, having read the article in the Telegraph, just how broadly it was. I knew a few people in my group who'd done this, but that's a good case of me personally having balls. Obviously I was nervous going over there, but basically having balls for a good cause. So that's that. So if you haven't subscribed, please give us a lick and subscribe.